It's been some time since the gas fruit was released to the game, but you gave it enough time to be called the best grinding fruit. And with the amount of people who are willing to sell both of their kidneys to use this fruit for a couple of minutes, this gives the claim a bit more credibility. However, the question stands, is this even true? Well, I'm Borrel the Barrel, and in today's video, I'll be reviewing the gas fruit and giving it a fair score from 1 to 10, based on its usefulness in grinding, as well as whether or not it's even worth buying. Before we begin, however, I just want to ask you to click the like button and maybe even subscribe to the channel for more Blox Fruits content. And with that said, let's get straight into the video. Alright everyone, so let's just get some general information out of the way with this fruit. So it's 2,500 Robux, which is around 25 bucks. So it is quite pricey, but it's a little cheaper than the Yeti fruit, which I did do a review on as well, so make sure to check that out after you finish this one. This is a semi-transformation fruit. It is one of the skills that you can like transform, but we'll get to that later. Now this also is a elemental mythical fruit, which I believe there are only 2 of at the moment. It also has 5 different skills, as you can see here, and this time I actually got all 5. I took the time to actually grind this thing because I was really interested in seeing what the transformation looked like, because at first I didn't even know it had one. But yeah, I'll be showcasing that as well later. This is also considered to be one of the best grinding fruits in the entire game, but it's also good for a specific reason that I'll mention later. Alright, let's just get some pros and cons out of the way like we usually do. So first, let's just get into some of the good things about this. So it's actually pretty easy to level up. This surprisingly only took me like 4 to 5 hours, maybe. Definitely no more than 5 hours to grind this fruit because it is quite simple to use. It has this as its base attack, so it's pretty good with damage, as well as having, you know, a pretty good stat for my Blox fruit. It also has this little attack here, so it has an M1 attack as well, which makes it pretty easy to finish off, which makes this fruit really easy to level up. So you do a bunch of damage initially, then all you gotta do is just finish it off, and boom, you leveled up. So another thing about this fruit is that it's pretty unique mechanically, as all of its skills are actually like pretty unique, surprisingly. So this is the first one, as I already mentioned before, so it looks pretty cool. It's I don't believe that it's AoE, but this one definitely is, and this is what it looks like. So I mean, that just looks really cool. But this is the level 200 mastery skill, and this is what it looks like. You basically summon a bunch of like these spirits, and then you just toss them at your enemies. And look at that, my transformation is ready. Okay, so one thing that you'll notice is this gas meter, and what this does is it basically allows you to transform, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, one last thing before we get to the transformation ability, it has a traveling gas ability, and what's really interesting about this thing is that it actually deals a little bit of damage for like a split couple of seconds. So here you can see for like 1 to 2 seconds max, it has like little things on its arms, like your character will have a couple of like bluish, whitish like orbs on your arms, and basically these do damage for like, it's not a lot of damage, but it's pretty good for like maybe if you're looking for some knockback. It's a good escape basically. So now let's get into probably my favorite part about this fruit, and really all fruits, its transformation. Now this is what it looks like when it's transformed, and I'm gonna have to zoom out all the way because this thing is huge. So once your gas meter is full, and you do this by just basically damaging enemies with your fruit, it can be M1, it can be your first mastery skill, or it can be the last one. But this is what it looks like. So you turn into like this night genie looking guy, and I mean the design on this thing is cool and all, but it is huge. I mean, even if I zoom out all the way, it still is like taking up the entire space here, and even more than that. So it's really huge, but it also looks really cool. Now, really interesting thing about this thing is that some of its abilities actually change. So traveling gas, for example, you no longer fly, you just dash for, it's barely anything, it's not really anything crazy, but you do that. Something like bursting vapor, for example, completely changes. This is the suffocating fumes. I mean, I believe this is just like, it's not that good, to be honest. It's really bad. And this is the smog demons. Now you actually get more of them, I believe. Yeah, this is definitely more. And obviously they do more damage. That is definitely good. Now the M1 attack on this thing is pretty bad, honestly, but it has really good reach. And one of the best thing about this thing is that you get 45% damage reduction, which is actually more than the Butterfruit. Now one last thing before we actually get into the cons. Something really useful about this thing is that due to its huge hitbox, you can just stand on water. Like, you can just like stand on water and walk on water. This also applies for lava as well. But yeah, this is just what happens due to its absolutely huge hitbox. Alright, but let's now get into the cons. Pains me to say this, but it has really low damage. For as good as this fruit is, it's not very good damage wise. Suffocating fumes, not great. Bursting vapor slightly better, but again not great. The smog demons are probably one of the best things about this fruit next to the transformation, but they're really hard to aim and very predictable when you're trying to like, charge them up, because if you just tap the C key once, I mean, you can do the ability unpredictably, but it's like, it's not as good. So you can do this, which makes it go by way faster, but you can also just charge it up as you saw before and deal much more damage. Now something that, this is probably just a me thing, but the colors on this thing, they are just too vibrant for me. So if I transform again, not only is it hard to see in general because of how big this thing is, it kind of hurts to look at, to be honest. Now, if you're just like using it maybe in PvP or something, or whatever it might be, maybe it's not that bad. But when you're trying to grind, I mean, when you're transformed, it's just too hard to see. Now, another thing before we get into the not transformed part of the cons, it drains basically whatever you do. The gas meter will drain basically forever, unless you again hit people with it or enemies with it. It will gain back some of the meter, but it does take, I believe, like around 10-ish minutes to fully deplete itself. But at that point, why would you even be using this in the first place? So that's kind of like a non-issue, to be honest. Now let's de-transform ourselves and talk about the M1 attack. It is horrible. I know that I mentioned that it's really easy to level up when you use it, but that's only because of how weak it is. Basically, you can just, in a couple of taps, just finish off any enemy. But one thing that you'll notice is how you move. It's just so hard to aim this thing, because it's not a typical sword. It hits wherever your thing is. So this is how it works with a normal sword. You just run around, and as long as you're aiming, that's how that works, because it has a like a shift lock type system. This thing doesn't. As you can see, I can rotate as much as I want, and it is really disorienting. And of course, lastly, as I mentioned before, the skills are not great. Again, damage is, it's pretty weak. Even with the best parts of the fruit, it's still really weak. Now this is kind of a side note, but if you equip your purple aura skin, it looks pretty cool, honestly. Like, it really fits the style here. So that's just kind of a side note. That's why I have it equipped, because I usually have my heat aura equipped, but this one I decided to do purple because it just looks really cool with the gas aura. Now let me just get into some of the things that you might want to keep in mind before you actually buy this fruit. Now this fruit is, like, as I said, $25 or 2,500 Robux, but it's probably your best fruit option if you're planning to use money. As you can see, everything basically after gas is no longer elemental. So you got control, spirit, leopard, yeti. These are all beast fruits. So none of them are actually going to give you any elemental immunity, as far as I know. They're of course like good for other reasons, and you're probably not going to use them for grinding anyway. But if you are planning on grinding, gas is definitely one of your best choices. Now, if you by chance were able to get it either from the fruit dealer, which I don't believe I ever saw gas being there, maybe once, like in its entire lifetime, or you got it from the fruit gacha. If you really don't want it, you got like a better fruit, definitely store it for trading. There are some really good trades and very valuable things that you can get for this fruit. For example, pretty sure my best offer was getting Venom, I believe. I'm pretty sure I got Shadow as well, and also Gravity. So I might be wrong because I don't have a screenshot of it, but I definitely remember Venom being in there. But yeah, definitely want to keep it if you aren't really like a fan of it, or you just probably have a better fruit. Now, this fruit is really good for raids. So any raid, basically, since the damage reduction is so high, basically is just as good as Buddha. And speaking of that fruit, this is basically an upgraded version of it. Only difference is that this one gives you elemental immunity, whereas Buddha doesn't. So you want to go for this or Buddha if you're like really into grinding. Maybe you're still in the second sea. I'm in the third one, and even here people are willing to give anything for gas. Now, a little like disappointing kind of thing, but it's definitely expected when you have a transformation fruit, is that you can't awaken it. You can definitely awaken Buddha, not gas, unfortunately, but I feel like this would, like, awakening this fruit specifically would probably make it more overpowered than it really needs to be, especially for that price. Now, for PvP people, I want to recommend this fruit if you're just planning on using it for PvP purposes. Skills are really hard to control. As you saw, even aiming the smog demons, you stand in place like you usually do whenever you're aiming anything, and you basically gotta like really quickly aim it, which is really hard. It's just not great. But as for the suffocating fumes, this is just a really bad part of the fruit for sure. Even when it's transformed, it's like it does barely any damage at all. Bursting vapor is kind of good, I suppose. Smog demons, of course, best part of the actual fruit, and of course the transformation and the damage reduction that comes with it. But yeah, with that said, this is probably going to be all that needs to be said about this fruit. So yeah, let's get into the outro. With all that said, is the gas fruit even good? Well, I'd say it's honestly one of the best fruits in the entire game. Its variety and different skills, paired with the quick mastery progress due to its quick damage, allows it for a good time when grinding. For this, the gas fruit gets a 9 out of 10 for me. Overall, a perfect fruit for grinding. It looks really cool, and the skills are fun to use. But with this, the video is over. If you liked the video or at all found it helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Anyways, this has been Borrow the Barrel, and I'll see you in the next upload.